Tri-Cities. It's 9 o'clock and it's time for Coffee with Karl. We are celebrating today. Today's our 1-year anniversary of Coffee with Karl, and we're also celebrating the return to in-person school here locally in the Tri-Cities. And so we've got a great panel today. We've got our local superintendents that would love to and excited to welcome them this morning. I will start off with Dr. Traci Pierce, who is the superintendent at Kennewick School District. Good morning, Dr. Pierce.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
You bet. Thanks for joining us. Michelle Whitney is the superintendent at Pasco School District. Good morning, Michelle.
Morning. Thank you for having us on your first anniversary episode.
I know it's a special occasion. We got to play the celebration song and everything. And we also have Dr. Shelley Redinger from Richland School District Superintendent. So good morning, Dr. Redinger.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation today.
You bet. Thanks for joining us on the 1-year anniversary show. And as we always do, we start off with a coffee mug or coffee story. So I've got, oops, oh man, this back. Yep, I'll try to put it right in front of my face so you can see it.
Oh, Star.
It says Star Pugs Coffee. Traci Zhao, that is really she runs Coffee with Karl. She came up with the idea, she produces it, she directed it. She and Tiffany Burke from our office gave this to me as I was studying for a certification test. And they know that our family loves pugs. We got 4 pugs. We have 4 rescue pugs that, came out of puppy mills and stuff. So it's kind of a cool cup and good celebration for the 1-year anniversary of Coffee with Karl.
Okay.
So let's go to Michelle. What do you got for a mug or coffee story for us?
So I am sharing this morning, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but this was actually a gift that was left here for me. And on it, it says special is not canceled. So when we found out that graduation was not happening last year, I made a video for our seniors. And one of the things I said to them is that special was not canceled, that we would find a way to honor them in a way that was special. So this very impressive gift showed up. It has that, and then it says my name on it. I do not know who left this for me. So this is actually a public plea. If anyone knows who left this for me, I would like to be able to personally thank them. So it's beautiful. I love it. I cherish it. And I would love to be able to personally thank whoever left it for me. So that's my story about my coffee vessel this morning.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you. Dr. Pierce, how about you? How about your coffee mug or story, or what do you got for us?
Yeah,
Well, go ahead.
Sorry. Did you say me or Shelley? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Dr. Pierce.
Oh, sorry.
No particular order. Sorry.
Okay. So here's my mug today. And this mug makes me really happy because it was made for me by my godson when he was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
A little happy birthday.
Oh, cool.
In the middle and everything. And he just turned 16 this month.
Wow.
So I thought I would get out my special mug from my godson and show it off this morning. His name's Daniel. And so he just got his driver's license, which is pretty amazing. Yeah.
We'll celebrate Daniel's driver's license today too. Dr. Redinger, how about you? What do you have for a coffee mug or story for us?
I actually have something today. Last time I didn't know exactly that I didn't have a mug. So my mother, as you know, I don't drink coffee, but I love tea. And my mother collected all kinds of tea containers, mugs. And so I have her favorite one. Oh, and wow. It's very spring-like. It has daffodils. I don't know if you can see it, but it's very special. And it was her favorite one. So when I'm feeling sad or missing her, I'll have some green tea in this. So very special to me.
That's awesome, and very, very representative of spring as well. That's really great colors. Well, let's get into our discussion this morning. As we said, I think everybody's back to in-person school now. So let's just go around the virtual room and can you each give us an update on how's it going and how long have you been back to school and what's the update there? And maybe we'll start with Dr. Pierce this time because I think Kenwick just started on Wednesday. So why don't you kick us off?
We did. So yes, it's a very happy celebratory week for us. So as everybody knows, right before spring break for all of us, the CDC updated their guidelines, which allowed us to, or allowed us as a state, to update the state guidelines. And so once the state guidelines were updated to allow for 3-foot distancing in classrooms, we were all able to put plans together to move forward. So our board met right before spring break, but prior to our state adopting, we didn't know yet whether or not the state was going to adopt the CDC guidelines. But at that meeting, they unanimously authorized our return to full-time 5 days in-person instruction as soon as those guidelines were updated. So it was perfect timing. The guidelines then got updated, and then it was like, okay, we're getting ready for spring break, but we went into planning mode, in high speed, and planned for a couple asynchronous days once we got back after spring break. And long story short, Wednesday was our day, and everyone's back full-time, 5 days in-person learning, and we're very excited about that. And it's going really well. We've been out in buildings talking with principals. Teachers are happy, students are happy. It's really great to have everybody back full-time.
Oh, that's great. Dr. Redinger, how about you? How's it going at Richland? How long have you guys been back?
Well, it's been going really good. We have everyone back 5 days a week, and it's just such a good feeling. Everything's not completely normal, though. I would not say it's normal operations yet. There's still a lot of things that are different, but staff has been amazing. I sent them all an email. They're just rocking it. Parents are just so thrilled to have their students back, their children back. And everywhere I went, I've visited all of our schools, and they said it was better than they thought. I mean, everybody I think was thinking this is gonna be so hard with everyone back, but everyone's really stepped up. The kids have been great about wearing their masks. Anyway, I couldn't be more pleased with the effort that everyone is making.
Great. Shelley, how about Pasco? I think you've been back the longest, maybe, or not?
So we brought elementary back on the 14th, right after spring break, the Wednesday immediately following spring break, and then our secondary started back on the 19th. So it much the same as Traci and Shelley reported. People are thrilled, kids are so happy, staff is happy. I would also echo what Dr. Redinger said is, while we are back 5 days, it doesn't look quote unquote normal. But everyone is super excited. I was talking to one of our middle school administrators, and he was sharing that his daughter was so excited about going back. And I said, well, so what did she say? And she said, oh, I'm so excited to meet the B kids. She was an A day kid. Oh. I'm excited to meet the B kids. And what are you hoping for? Which I thought, what a great parent question, right? Like, what are you hoping for? And I hope they're nice, and I hope they're all girls. She was a second grade. And I told him, I said, well, wait, that'll change by the time she gets to middle school. She'll be hoping for something different in the B-Day kids. So those are some of the great anecdotes that we've heard about how excited kids are. And I have to say, I got an email from a local leader who, I think we all interact with schools, and it can trigger real emotions for us. And so what triggered some emotions for this person was seeing school buses on the road in mass, and how much we've missed that as a community and what that really symbolizes. So it feels not only like a celebration for our 3 school districts, but for the broader community as well. And I just feel really proud to be a part of it. It's pretty extraordinary.
That's a great point. You miss those things, you forget about them, and then going through this year, which everything's been kind of out of whack, it probably does, for the general population, if you don't have kids in school, that you have a chance to actually kind of get back to normal, have that feeling of even seeing buses or something on the street. That's funny, because this is, we're just, I've had our first year in the Tri-Cities, and along the lines of celebration, I think the other thing that, besides getting back to school, is in our neighborhood, we just turned on the irrigation system. I think that's like a celebration. Like, just everybody in our neighborhood just literally came out of the woodwork. And, I was fixing a sprinkler in my front lawn. Neighbor walks his dog by, he goes, hey, is irrigation water on? I go, yeah. And the guy starts like running back to his house. So I think that's something new to me. Like, irrigation day is almost, a celebration, just like back to school day.
Yeah.
Well, what about, this year, obviously in remote learning, and then kind of hybrid, and now back to school, face-to-face. let's talk about some of the successes or, some lessons learned maybe in this year. And we'll just stay with Michelle and kick it off. Like, are there, just off the top of your head, are there some things in this weird year that you've learned and maybe, could carry through into future, how does school happen things?
No, absolutely. And I think probably all three of us as superintendents will point to the utilization of technology has been probably the most incredible innovation, and the level of agility and the nimble nature of the learning for staff, for the infrastructure, for parents, and for students. If somebody would have said a year and a half ago that what we did in the 12 months or 18 months that we've been doing this was possible, we would have laughed and said, there's no way. There is no way. And yet we did it. And it really, like, I get goosebumps talking about it. And it's the amount of innovation under extraordinary pressure. Like, if you remember back when schools closed, the amount of uncertainty that was out there, and remember going to the grocery store and the shelves were empty, and kind of the feel of how that was the moment when our staff, families, and parents and students had to be the most innovative we've ever asked them to be. So you have these extraordinarily emotional experiences that we're all having, this uncertainty, we've never done this before, and yet we have to dig deep and find our best selves and create this, like, re-innovate education that hasn't changed a ton in 100 years. So I definitely think what we've learned about ourselves in terms of that disposition, that we can pivot quickly as an educational entity, I think is a disposition that I hope we take. Well, I don't hope, we will take with us post-COVID, but then also the learning around technology and how we can enhance our lives post-COVID when we can do in person, but also not lose those great components of the virtual environment where we can have, town hall meetings with 800 people on them. I've, as a superintendent, never had a meeting where 800 people showed up in person. Yeah. But I could have a meeting where 800 people are showing up, and that level of access. And while it's not that person to person, that interface you want to have, so it will never replace the human contact that we all need. But I do think it can enhance our educational delivery and the way that we run our school districts and the way we interface with our community moving forward.
Oh, that's great. And you just remind me of maybe not quite a year ago, we were on, I think, together on maybe the Badger Club or something like that. And I remember, and this was early on in the remote learning phase, and you made a comment about, a lot of your families don't have access to broadband. So, well, and then we'll go back to the rest of the panel, but can you, like, how did that work? Did you guys overcome it? How did you overcome it? And is it better? I know the state, legislature right now is just finalizing, there's gonna be a lot of money for broadband access, not only in running new lines, but then also to help families in need have access to broadband. But how did you guys overcome that? Just top of mind question.
Right. So, and again, Traci and Shelley, I'm sure will add to this, but one of the ways, first of all, it was through personalized contact with individual families. We found out what each individual family needed. I think that's critical to kind of understand in this environment. Is it took individual contact with families to say, what do you need in order to access? Do you need a laptop? Do you need access to broadband? And it was individual problem solving, family by family. So, that took all hands on deck to make those calls, to make those contacts, and then follow through with whatever they needed. So it was really problem solving family by family. And one of the ways that we helped families access is by providing hotspots. That was one of the ways that not only here locally, but statewide people provided access. And then, and we kind of had a tiered system. So it was, if they can access, if it's attainable for them to access their own, like, company-based internet with supports that were out there at the time. There were different kind of grant programs and so on and so forth that were supporting families. So we tried that first. And then, so we had this kind of tiered approach. We were really taking the stance that access to a provider's broadband is kind of the first attempt. So we exhausted kind of that continuum. And then if there was no other way to solve the broadband access problem or barrier, we then provided the hotspot, because we recognized the hotspot wasn't the most ideal solution. So we wanted to really provide that gold standard, which was access to a provider's service. But if there was absolutely no other option, then we provided hotspots. So that's how we approached it. And I'm sure Shelley and Traci can add additional details.
Yeah, let's go to Dr. Redinger next. Lessons learned in the past year, the remote learning and hybrid, and then any examples, how did you overcome some of those broadband gaps that I think everybody went through?
So very similar to Michelle, we really worked with communities and schools. That's a group we work closely with to help us identify families, because they are in close communication that really were having issues getting those hotspots. So we did purchase hotspots. We were able to check those out, give those to many, many families. So then we felt like we had done a pretty good job. Lessons learned, though, is we found out the Chromebooks we purchased were not real compatible with Zoom. And so we had to work very closely with the vendor to get those updated so that they were workable. So lessons learned is check out our computers before purchasing a little bit more. But the problem is that that old cliche that we are building the plane as you're flying it. You're not only building it, you're repairing it. Build, repair as you're flying it. So it's been quite interesting. But we've also been very happy about partnering, getting vaccinations. So the pharmacies have been outstanding. The regional health department, we've just all grown together with them. They have been amazing. But lessons learned too are don't ever put something in stone, because it is constantly changing in terms of how long you quarantine to the space between students. I mean, you have to be really agile. And so anyway, those are some of our lessons learned. There's a lot more, but I'll just stop there.
Yeah. No, I think that those are great examples, because I think, even what we talked about so far, and we'll go to Dr. Pierce next, but, I think generally speaking, and Michelle, you said schools maybe haven't really changed in the way they educate or learn in 100 years, right? And so, just generally we think of schools as being pretty much, hey, it's just like when I was in school and this is the way it goes. But, the words that all of you are bringing up today, like being able to pivot, flexibility, and agility, those are things that we don't normally associate with K12 education or education in general. So I think that's awesome that, these are things that are, words from the business community, right? That successful businesses use, and we all read the books and stuff like that. So I think these are, great lessons learned. And Dr. Pierce, how about you at Kennewick? Did similar stories or any other lessons learned in this past year?
Yeah, I came across a quote the other day that I think is completely fitting for the situation that we're all describing in it. And it says, a mind that is stretched by new experiences can never go back to its old dimensions. And when I came across that quote, it came across on an app that I subscribe to. And I'm like, that's a perfect quote for today, because that's really what we've all experienced as organizations and people, I think, through this past year. And I think what it has shown us in a field that, as you said, and we all acknowledge, isn't known necessarily for change. People can remember what school was like when they went to school, and you walk into a school and it's kind of the same. I mean, there's definitely been, change and improvement in technology and those things. But I think what it has shown us is that we can adapt. And we can be flexible, and we can find solutions to really challenging problems, and things don't have to look like they always have. And so I'm really proud of, and I know Michelle and Shelley would say the same thing, really proud of our teachers, of our administrators, of our students and families for being adaptable and flexible and being willing to seek solutions and go, yeah, like here's these new guidelines, and yesterday it was this and now it's this. And we need to find a solution, and not having a solution is not an option. So we gotta think differently. Let's get creative, and people have risen to the challenge across the board. I'm amazed at the creativity that we have collectively shown, and keeping students at the center of that creativity as well. Yeah, this might be more challenging if we do it this way. This might be harder for us as adults, or it might be harder on whether it's the transportation system or the business office or nutrition services or the academic side of the house. We can do it that way because this is going to be better for our students. And that's why we're all here. And so that's what makes me excited about the future. You know, nobody would have wished this situation on anybody, but the good that we can glean from it and move forward, and the lessons learned in terms of what we actually can do and how we can do things better and differently for students. So while we're returning to normal, it's like normal but better. I mean, right now it's different, you know, but you know, and how so can we continue to keep that mindset as we move forward into next year and beyond?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And I'll just say, you know, like as a parent in the context of this, I think it was just really interesting seeing, because, you know, because we all came up through essentially the same American education system, right? Like we just think, okay, school looks like this is how it is. But we always just assume that the school district has everything figured out. And I think that, you know, as a parent, I'm sure you guys went through many of these conversations, you must have, you know, just understanding like, hey, this is new, you know, hang in there with us. We'll get it worked out. We'll get it figured out. It's sort of a new relationship with parents and families. And like Michelle, you talked about for broadband access that you guys actually one-on-one connected with each family and stuff like, so do you think that there's even like a new relationship that you've been able to set with, you know, not only the students, but then their families and that perception of, and I'll just throw an example out. I just thought of it. I think back in Moscow, maybe a year or two ago, the school district and the teachers and everybody said, like, we want to go to, instead of like a grade system, we want to go to, and you guys are educators, I'm not, but essentially a system that shows that you've proven yourself in the subject area, right? And
Like
I forget what the term is for it.
Proficiency or competency kind of.
Yeah, proficiency. And so they said, hey, this is great. You know, it's going to be a better way for kids to actually show that they've mastered the subject and then move on to the next area and stuff. And there was such a huge backlash from like the parents who couldn't wrap their minds around like, well, what, I'm not getting a report card, you know, they're not going to get an A or B or something. So, you know, sometimes families and parents hold back, you know, maybe education innovation. So I use that as an example of, do you think this gives you a new chance to, I don't want to say reset, but maybe re-identify that relationship between the district and parents and families and children, you know, the students and the district? I mean, is there like lessons learned from the remote learning and maybe a deeper connection to the families that you'll come out of it? And maybe I'm making a question up, but okay, go back to Michelle, because your comment about contacting each, you know, family made me think of it.
Sure. No, I think that you raise a really, I think, an interesting dialogue. So I think as school districts, engaging parents in decision-making, like our strategic planning efforts, when there's like boundary revisions, et cetera, has always been a core value of school districts. And I think the innovation for school districts is, how do you engage families in a real and meaningful way so they have enough information to participate in the decision-making process, and that you're reaching a wide enough cross-section of your community that people's voices are truly represented. So, you know, it isn't uncommon for school districts, for example, to engage families around boundary planning, let's say. Well, the voices are the voices who show up to a meeting that's scheduled from 6 to 8 at night, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's the place where school districts, and I'll just, you know, we have struggled in the past in making sure the right voices are in the room. And it's really challenging to create an engagement opportunity that works for everyone. Yeah. So, you know, at the end of the day, you're limited in what you can learn from who's participating. So that's where I see that there's this broader way of engaging our community. Like, and I know our community got real sick of the whole survey situation, and I understand, but there's also something now they're more used to. You know, it's not a tool we used a ton in Pasco prior, but it could be a tool that will integrate into our repertoire of engaging families, albeit not as often.
Sure.
Learned a lot about how to build a better survey.
Yeah.
Then also these online opportunities to provide information, and how do we engage online where we can get a lot of information that's targeted and focused, so it's actionable information in really a short period of time with, like I said, 800 people on a call.
Yeah.
You know, we've devised and developed mechanisms for doing that it did not exist in my toolbox as a superintendent pre-COVID. So the desire and the effort to engage families is not a new desire and effort of school districts. The tools that we've had, like there's a whole new world available to us as a district that parents now, because of a necessity, are expecting and have practiced engaging in it. And I think that's the game changer.
Yeah.
We have these new tools available to us, and they were really forged out of, you know, a crisis and necessity. And then now how do we take those tools and refine our use of them? Because again, like Shelley said, we were building the plane as we were flying it. And then I was kind of laughing when she said that. And then we were told to build a helicopter, you know, and then it's like, no, okay, now I'm not building a plane anymore. I'm building the helicopter, you know, and then now we need a glider, you know, I mean, so even what we were building changed on us while we were flying, you know. So it's about taking those tools that, and I'm going to, you know, some of the implementation, for example, of the surveys was a little bumpy because we were learning it, you know, finding those so that we're maximizing the power of those so that we're really getting targeted and actionable interface with our community. I think that's the exciting innovation that comes post-COVID.
Totally.
I just have to say, and we're trying to put gas in the helicopter and the plane while it's flying too. So.
Yeah.
No, that's really well said. Dr. Pierce or Dr. Redinger, any other thoughts on that, like the engagement with families and just, you know, maybe new tools in the toolbox as far as feedback, you know, from families and gaining support?
I have just a couple quick things. Piggybacking on Michelle's comments, so use of surveys and technology in different ways, Zoom webinars that we hadn't done in the past, kinds of things to get information out and have engagement with families, whereas in the past we maybe would have a in-person, you know, session. We had schools do like math bingo nights and shift and do those kinds of activities because they couldn't have the in-person math nights. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was the opportunity that just opening the window to what's happening in classrooms, I think has been really interesting this year for many families because, you know, of course we have families who volunteer in classrooms and so forth, but the extent to which a family member can hear and see what was happening in a classroom during remote learning or during hybrid learning, and to see what's in Google Classroom and Seesaw, you know, our learning management systems, that whole level of access to your child's learning and how to help support your child's learning, I think has been increased this year.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, I just want to add that one thing in K12, and you hear, again, I'm saying using a lot of cliches today, but the pendulum swings. Like, you know, we swing like testing is bad, so we don't do any testing. And then it's like, oh, we didn't do any testing, you know, and so we don't ever get this middle. And I had a wake-up call I have a community advisory group, which are representatives from each school. And a parent said, we were all on Zoom. And she said it was really a wake-up call of how we're communicating. She said, I have more information than I've ever had before, but I feel more disconnected than ever before from my child's school. And she said it's because nothing is in person. And even on the meeting that we were having, she said it's good information, but it's so hard to connect. And she feels very alone. So that just almost broke my heart. So it's just a good reminder of we still need to do in person. We still need to take time to, I can't tell you how many times people will see me in person for the first time and they're like, oh, wow. You know, it's like we met for the first time, because when you see the whole person. So I just, that just happened last night. And I've been thinking a lot about that.
Make me cry this morning, Dr. Redinger. Wow. Do you need a disclaimer before you into those kinds of things? Wow.
Oh.
Well, I think that's, we've all learned that, right? No matter whether it's school or work or what, is that everybody needs that human connection and that face to face in whatever we do. And so technology is a great bridge, but it doesn't replace what I think everybody, just to some degree, is looking forward to getting back to. And not all work situations are back, and some work situations might be remote for a long time in the future. So I think we're all learning a lot of those lessons. I did want to remind anybody that's joining us on Zoom, you can always ask a question in the question and answer feature down below. And if you're listening or watching on social media, you can always put your questions in the comment section, and we'll do our best to get to all the questions that we have. Well, let's move into what's up for the rest of the year. And I think a topic probably that's on a lot of folks' minds is graduation. And obviously graduation last year was a challenge, and everybody, again, was flexible and agile and overcame and came up with some great solutions to stay safe. But what are the guidelines for this year? What are you able to do, and what's each district planning to do? And maybe we'll start this time with Dr. Redinger.
Well, so Fran Rish, because you can fit more people if you're outside. That's the guidelines today. Okay. I mean, that's one thing too, is we have had multiple options ready to go, just in case the things change. So for Richland, it will be Fran Rish, Richland High and Hanford High will take turns, and one is on Friday night, one's on Saturday during the day. And every student, the last I heard was they get to have 4 guests, and then they'll be very organized with numbers and all of that, so that we can do contact tracing, families together. But we're all very, very excited to bring all the students together, and we're just really hoping for good weather, so we don't have like a major windstorm or something that blows everything all over.
Gotcha. Sounds great. Dr. Pierce, how about you at Kenwick School District? What are the graduation plans for this year?
Sure. Well, just real quick before I get to graduation, just thinking about the rest of the year, I just wanted to share when I sent a message to our KSD staff on Wednesday, our first day, and I shared in that email that I had recently read that in 2015, NASA funded a project for Ad Astra Rocket Company's Vasimer plasma rocket. And the goal of that project is to develop a rocket engine that can propel human missions to Mars in 39 days. And why I think that is relevant for us is that Wednesday marked the first of 39 days that are left in our school year. And while we might not be building rocket missions to Mars, I think what we're doing is actually more important. And we are responsible, for the growth and learning and academic and social emotional well-being of humans. And we can do a lot in 39 days. And we're going to make every one of those 39 days count for our students, culminating with our seniors graduating. And for us, that will happen at Lamson. So outside for Kennewick High School, Kenwick High School and Southridge, they all graduate on Saturday, June 12th, I believe that's the correct date. And then we've got our smaller high schools graduating outside on their campuses, either the Thursday or Friday before that Saturday. So we're also hoping for good weather, and students will have 4 guest tickets, and we'll have a pooling lottery process for ticket sharing if people need fewer or more guest tickets. And so that's our plan, and it is all contingent on the phase 3 guidelines, and if as a state or if our county's in a better place, we'll have more guest tickets, and we're anticipating that will be our plan, that we're not going to move backward or anything. So
everyone's supportive of that. We just need to remind everyone to continue to social distance, wash your hands, and wear your mask, so that we can make sure that we don't go the wrong direction, for sure. That's a great point. Michelle, how about Pasco? Dr. Pierce, thanks for reminding us that we still have 39 days in this year. We're not at graduation yet, but the rest of this year, and then your plans for graduation.
Sure. So I appreciate what Traci said about the rest of this year. Our staff is really doubling down for our kids to make the most of the last 39 days. And I think thinking about how to finish up this year strong to stick with the NASA theme, as a launching pad for how to start in the fall. I think that was really one of the tremendous benefits of pivoting and making this one last transition, or like fingers crossed, one last transition when we did, is not only about getting that really doubling down on that in-person contact for the last portion of the school year, but as then a launching pad for really the summer activities and then coming back in the fall. So I'm really excited about that, and I appreciate Traci and Mike steal your approach there with your language. That's awesome and really, really powerful. So graduation, Pasco is lucky in that we've graduated our students in Edgar Brown for as long as I can remember. I want, like since the dawn of time, it's been in Edgar Brown. So we were really lucky, and we already had an outdoor venue that we're used to using. So when, so I just want to assure my other superintendent friends, in my 5 years being superintendent, the weather has been manageable for all 5 of those years. So that alleviates your concern.
Good.
Might be a little hot, but you'll be fine. So we're excited to get back to, or to go to Edgar Brown. That's where our comprehensive high schools will graduate. We maintained the same graduation date. However, we're offering multiple ceremonies. So each of our comprehensive high schools will have 3 ceremonies so that we can maximize the number of guests that each graduate could have. So each of our graduates, we're using a ticketing system like Kenwick and Richland. Each graduate will have 5. There'll be a plan for kids that don't use all their tickets to turn them back in so that kids that need more tickets can get access to tickets. But we're really excited about being able to offer those in-person graduations. And, there's some celebrations in that, and there's some things that we need to acknowledge that may be disappointing for families. For example, not all my friends are going to be at my graduation, or I may be separated from people who, I'm graduating at 9, but my best friend is graduating at 11, and some of those things will happen. And so even in the face of this celebration, there's still some places where, it's a tough, kind of tough on our families and students. And I think there needs to be some acknowledgement of that. And then, the truth is they're going to have to pick 5 people to be there in person, which is, making those decisions as families. I want to acknowledge that is hard. So because of that, and we even previous to COVID live streamed our graduations, we will continue to do that. And I'm sure Kenwick and Richland will do that as well, so that those family members that can't be there in person can watch it on a live stream and have it recorded for posterity and so on and so forth. So comprehensive graduations will be on graduation date, which is June 12th, different times of the day. And then New Horizons will graduate during the week on their campus, and then Delta High School will actually be at Edgar Brown as well, graduating there. So we're excited to be able to honor our students and families in person, and looking forward to, it's such a critical celebration and benchmark in a student's life, and it's really culminated by that in-person graduation experience. So I'm looking forward to it. So my birthday is in June, and it falls always right around graduation, and it's the best birthday present I could have, watching those kids walk into Edgar Brown. And every year I stand there and cry. And every year I'm proud of the tears that are streaming down my face. And so I cannot wait to stand there and watch them walk in.
After the year everyone's gone through, right? Just even maybe a little bit more, because it's maybe such a release, or a little bit of a return to some sense of normalcy that everybody's been looking forward to for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, let's, we kind of hinted around about it, but let's move into next year. Like what are the plans for next year? And also, when we were on before, we talked a little bit about some construction. Obviously everybody, our whole community is growing so rapidly, and there's a really an increase in construction and new school buildings and remodelings and stuff like that. So let's get into this round of questions on what's coming up for next year and new construction going on in each of your districts. And we'll start with Dr. Pierce this time.
Okay, well, first I'll start on the learning side. Wow. And that whole conversation we were having earlier about the experiences this year and the lessons learned, and how do we apply the creative solutions and some of just the different kinds of thinking into our full-time in-person learning plan for next year. Our first step is summer school, and really thinking differently about increasing access to summer school, and have summer school look a little different this year, not only to accommodate more students, but to be more focused on things like STEM learning opportunities, hands-on learning, kind of different sorts of approaches to summer school to really engage students and get students excited about learning and ready for next year. And then every school district across the state is given an opportunity from the state to do some real formal reflection and planning for next year. So we're all required to do a learning, I just have to see what it's called again. It is called a, sorry. Well, now I can't find the name of it, but it's an academic recovery and learning plan or something to that effect that we're all required to complete. And the plan focuses on student well-being, student and family voice, which things we've talked about, professional learning, recovery and acceleration, diagnostic assessments, Shelley mentioned assessments, and community partnerships. So all building blocks of what we need to be doing as a school system. So this is a formalized process for us to really reflect as an organization, to build a plan for how we can learn and apply lessons learned into our plan for next year. And this has to do with using the funding, the funding from the federal government, the recovery funding, ESSER funding, and how we can utilize that funding to improve student success. So we're not only applying kind of that thinking lens to our summer programs, but beginning a formalized process involving school administrators and families and so forth to complete our plan. It's an iterative plan, so the first phase of it is due to the state June 1st, and then different times throughout the year where districts update that plan and so forth. So I actually think it's a great formalized process to ensure that the districts are really applying what we've learned and thinking real carefully and methodically and intentionally about how we're going to use the funding that we're receiving for students to improve student success.
Wow. Oh, that's great. Construction updates, any new buildings going on or anything coming up?
Oh yeah, we've got lots of exciting things going on. So Kennewick High School is making great progress, and so if you haven't driven by there, I would really encourage people to. It's really exciting. It's beautiful. You can also see drone footage videos that are on our website of the project. So that is on track and will be open for the fall. We've got the additions and field work happening at Southridge High School and Kenwick High School. So that's all underway and going really well as well. So the other kind of exciting thing about all of this is, well, students are back full time now, but for example, for our Kennewick students, when they come back in the fall, they're going to have a beautiful new building. And of course, our high school students at Southridge and Kenwick and their new wings and fields will all be complete as well. So it'll be a great kind of new beginning, I feel, for.
Oh, that's great. Dr. Redinger, how about Richland? What are you looking forward to next year, academically, school-wise, and then any new construction you have going on?
Well, we're looking forward to having hopefully the calendar in place, and so that our kindergartners can plan on coming to school. And but we're looking forward to a big kindergarten class. We heard quite a few of our families redshirted their children, so it should be a really big class. Also, we've decided, our Richland virtual school will be in full swing. We were just approved by the state for it to be a full independent school. And so that serves grades K12. The 612 component has been approved. And so they're going to rename it and they're picking mascots. It's pretty exciting. So we're very excited to offer that. So that's something that came out of all this. We have a virtual option we'll continue to offer to families. I also, next year, I think we're telling everyone you're going to be wearing masks probably. So don't, be prepared for that as we're moving forward. In terms of facilities, we just updated Richland High School Auditorium. It looks beautiful. And then fields, we're doing the same thing as Kenwick. We're updating our fields. So Hanford High School is getting a big facelift. It'll be a beautiful a new field and facility at Hanford High School, and then at the Fran Risch Stadium, that is just getting started. We just were approved by the state to be what's called GCCM, General Contractor Construction Management. So now, because that's going to be a very complex project, and so we were approved to, and that's gone out to bid. So we're very excited about that. Turf is coming to Richland, so we're excited about that. Save some water for the community, and so that will be very exciting. I know our staff wants to go visit Kennewick's and Pasco's and just to learn what we can do. That's one of the reasons we went GCCM, is it's such a condensed space. And so we really want to work with the contractor from the very, very beginning on the thing to make that space as usable as possible. So that's pretty much some of the things going on.
Thank you. Michelle, about Pasco, what's coming up next year, and then new construction as well?
Yeah, no, I appreciate Traci outlining the requirement from OSPI around our academic recovery planning. Pasco School District Board of Directors will have that plan presented to them at the May 11th board meeting. So if community is interested in seeing the details of that planning, the outcome of that planning process, it'll be presented in public on May 11th. And then the board would be scheduled to take formal action on it on May 25th for our board meeting. Our board meeting is at 6:30. If you want to tune in, you can come in person or tune in virtually. And then our board meetings are recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. And we did that even pre-COVID. So that's a great resource for community members to access information. So I appreciate Traci bringing that up. And I also wanted to highlight on one of the things that Traci said, the term that she said she used was acceleration. So all of us, when we're looking at the experiences we're providing over the summer and then what next year looks like in terms of the academic experience for kids, I think it's important to really highlight this concept of acceleration. And so it's acceleration versus remediation. And you may think, well, what's the difference? The difference really is around acceleration is an asset-based orientation. It really looks at what kids have versus a deficit-based orientation where you're looking at what kids don't have. And I was trying to think of an example that would be kind of a clean example. So for those of you who are parents or grandparents and you have one of your grandkids or kids, they get up in your lap and they want to read a book with you and they have the book upside down, you just turn the book right side up. You teach them that the book goes right side up as you open the pages and start to teach them about what reading means. You don't say, well, until you can hold this book right side up, I'm not going to read it to you. So it's an accelerate. You're teaching them the skill of turning the book right side up while you're also teaching them reading. It's the same thing like, for example, you're teaching fourth grader to long divide. They don't know their multiplication tables. You don't say, well, until you learn your multiplication tables, I'm not going to even talk to you about long division. You teach them the multiplication tables while you're also teaching them long division. So I think those are two hopefully kind of clean examples of what I'm trying to describe. And then it gets a little more complicated as your subject areas get more complicated. But certainly the concept is about building on a student's strength, what they already know, recognizing the skill they need to attain the next skill, and providing those simultaneously as a way to accelerate a student's catch up. That will be the focus for every school district in the nation. So I think that one of the things I try to talk about when we're talking about what does the summer look like and next year in terms of the academic experience is to alleviate some of the anxiety around learning loss in comparison to who or what. Every student in the nation has had an interrupted year. And certainly that doesn't mean we're dismissive of that. We certainly recognize that and want to accelerate, but this anxiety that they're behind someone or something, they're certainly behind what they would have where they would have been had we had a normal year, but nothing about the last year was normal. So I want to alleviate some of the tension and anxiety, and you hear it in students' voices too, especially our high school students who are very worried about their academic plan, that, the students in the nation have had the same experience as you. And we're going to dig in where our students are and help accelerate our students' learning so that they can attain those goals that they had for themselves pre-COVID, post-COVID. So I think those might be some important aspects of the lens that all of us are wearing as we're thinking about the summer and into the next school year. In terms of building, Pasco has been a hugely growing community for like the last decade and a half. And we're so grateful to our community who passed a bond that resulted in the opening of 3 Rivers pre-COVID. And then just most recently, the opening of Columbia River Elementary that opened right in the middle of the pandemic, and then Ray Reynolds Middle School. We did a dedication just this week on Wednesday for Columbia River. There will be a dedication for Ray Reynolds on next Wednesday. There will be an open house next Wednesday at 5:30. If you're a community member who wants to come and see the inside of Ray Reynolds Middle School, we invite you to come. You'll be given a tour. We're following all the rules and social distancing and all the things, so everyone will be safe, but also be able to see inside of that school. It's an absolutely amazing school. It's named after a beloved former Pasco administrator, so it really is just an amazing kind of highlight and kind of lighthouse for us as a community. So come out and check it out if you'd like. We also completed a new Stevens Middle School. That project was built on the same land as the quote unquote old Stevens. And it was a little bit bittersweet. The brand new building went up right next door to the old building. And we all knew that at some point the old building would need to be removed to make way for the rest of the project. So it was a bittersweet moment the day that we demolished the old Stevens. And you know, I think sometimes we think about buildings as school buildings, but they're really a vessel for memories and experiences for students and families. And we offered an opportunity for the community to walk through the old Stevens before it was removed. I try not to use the word demolished because before it was removed. And there was a group who came, and they came with an old yearbook, and the whole group was in the yearbook with a picture in the courtyard. So the whole group came back all of these years later with their yearbook and had the same picture taken in the courtyard. I mean, that's how much it means to people. So I just, you know, when we pass bonds and build new schools, and, you know, there's this technical aspect and the new election and the building, but it really is about creating these vessels for memories to happen. And again, those launching pads for the next generation of leaders and learners in our world. And it really is an extraordinary celebration for our community. And we're so incredibly grateful. Our bond also had some projects like security foyers and new roofs and all those things. Those things are also completed. And then the very last part of our bond project is providing a new transportation facility for our transportation department. That facility has been long overdue in terms of expansion. And we got very innovative and creative in applying for what's called a co-op or a cooperative. And it's a program through the state where if you partner with another district and provide some cooperative services, you can qualify for additional matching funds for a building project. So we had $2 million of the bond dedicated to a new transportation facility. And while $2 million is a lot of money, when you start applying it to building a facility, it only goes so far. So we were able to partner with the state, and now we're going to be able to provide a much bigger, much more technologically advanced facility. And it will still only be $2 million of the bond, and there'll be, I believe it's I think $10 to $17 million, don't quote me on that. So the rest of that comes from the state. So we were very proud of our team that dug into that opportunity to be able to provide a much needed space for our bus drivers. And along those lines, here's a shameless plug. If you know anyone who wants to be a bus driver, any one of our 3 districts would hire them. We are short drivers. So it's a great job. If anyone wants to know more, contact us. We'll get you connected with the right people. You're welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes.
That's great. Well, this has been great. We're at the end of our time. It seems like it's flown by. The next time we get together, though, you just brought up something that I'd like to go deeper into, and that's this concept that you just described about, you know, instead of maybe sequential learning to integrate those functions, right? Because I think we hear that from employers, and we'll talk more about it the next time we're together. But you know, the contextual learning, right? Like, why is math important? Why is science important? Because here's how you're going to use it, maybe in a job, and that whole thing, which is, I think, kind of around the edges of what you're talking about. So that's a good reminder for the next time we're together. But I'd just like to thank you all for being on this morning, our 1-year celebration and celebrating, returning to in-person school, which is a huge accomplishment. And, I have to say, great job to all of you and your teams for really persevering and coming up with some great innovative solutions to get through really this pandemic that we've been in and hopefully are coming out of and making some good progress. So I'll just open it up if you guys want to make a closing statement, and let's just go with Dr. Pierce first. And thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. And just in closing, Michelle spoke a lot just now about community support, in the form of bond support and voting for measures. And that's a huge aspect of community support that we all appreciate. And I also want to say that throughout this past year, the community support, just the understanding, the willingness to adapt, the willingness to say, how can we help you? I mean, just even last week, we had people saying, do you need help moving furniture? What can we do to help? I think that just speaks volumes about our communities. And, we've got people who have been here for generations and generations and have a deep love of this community. And that's really come out in this whole situation. So I just want to say thank you to our community.
Great, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. Let's go to Dr. Redinger next. Thanks for joining us today, and we really appreciate your time and put it up for a closing remark.
Yep, just piggyback on what Traci said. This is an amazing community. I can't think of a place that I would rather be than in the Tri-Cities and in Richland. Just everyone works hard, comes together. We stay focused as a community on what's right and what's important. And I feel strongly that's why we're one of the first in the state to have all of our students back, because our community joins hands and wants to get our kids the best education possible. And this is going to give all of our students a leg up, and that's going to be very necessary moving forward. So just stronger together, and love this community.
Thanks, Dr. Redinger. And I have to echo your remarks, being a new Tri-City and our family, just so excited to be here. But I do have to give a plug for a movie I watched last night, and I was thinking of the tie-in because you just came from Spokane, and last night I watched, and obviously this dates me a bit, Vision Quest, which I just like it because it shows the Spokane seeds and stuff. And so I think maybe that's our goal, is like, how can we all work together to get like a cool Tri-Cities high school movie shot here in the future? So I'm throwing that out, like, not setting the bar high or anything, but I was inspired by it. And I was like, how can I work Vision Quest into this, because it's obviously ties in that.
Awesome.
All right, Jill, can you close us out?
Absolutely. So Lunatic Fringe is one of the songs that's really critical, and it's like one of my favorite songs ever. So now I have that in my head. Thank you, Karl. So I just want to echo what Traci and Shelley said. I've been in this community my entire life. I've been in Pasco School District a quarter of a century, and I echo what Shelley said. There is no place I'd rather be than right here doing the work I'm doing. And I absolutely agree with what Traci said. And I wanted to just point to one small example of the partnership that Traci was talking to. So as we're all trying to bring our students back, one of the biggest, and this is going to sound simple, but it's not, one of the biggest challenges was access to furniture. So our schools, we don't do desks and rows anymore. It's about collaborative learning at tables. And we had to get our kids far enough apart. And if you didn't have like a 6-foot table, you couldn't use the table. And it got very complicated very quickly. And it was causing us to need to get like thousands of desks shipped into our collective school districts.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we'll end up with 3,400 new desks. So we were kind of on the eve of needing to make some decisions about our high school students, and we did not have enough furniture for our high school students. So when our high school students came back, it would look like they'd have a chair, but no furniture. And that's definitely not the message we were wanting to send to our kids. And so, I get this look sometimes, this panicked kind of stoic look, and my facilities department dug in and built a partnership with CDC, who literally opened their doors to us and gave us the furniture we needed to get us across the goal line. And had it not been for that partnership, the message that we would be sending our high school kids would have been vastly different than the one we were able to send them that looked like we're ready for you and have a place for you to learn. And, you know, while that may seem small to those that are not in the middle of it, that was extraordinary to just open your facility, your institution, doors wide open and say, how can we help? We have what you need. Not only did they let us borrow it, they delivered parts of it. I mean, they helped move it. I mean, and that's an example of the extraordinary measures that many, many community partners have taken, not only for our district, but for Kennewick and Richland too. And I have not lived in other communities, so I am biased, but I can't imagine there's very many other communities where you would get that kind of personalized support that really was a game changer for us. So I just echo what Traci and Shelley said, and also to extend my extraordinary gratitude to both of them. I'm proud to be leading during this pandemic shoulder to shoulder with you. Thank you, Traci and Shelley.
Thank you.
Well, that's
Right
really
back at you.
Yeah, feel the same.
That's great. And I do think that just in a meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, a comment was made in, this is someone from up in Grant County, and they said, like, I haven't really been down here a lot, but this is great. You guys are personable. You treat people with respect. It just feels like sitting down and having a conversation with somebody when we had this, pretty good sized meeting. And I said, well, it's because, we might be 300,000 people, but like, it still feels like a small town. And I know I'm a newcomer, but that's the way it feels, right? We're still connected. We're still really one community. And I think you've all put it really well. And I really appreciate your partnership and the work that you've all done. So thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for joining us on our 1-year anniversary Coffee with Karl. Congratulations on going back to school. Congratulations on graduating senior. Got the book. That's right, special teacup. So thank you all again for your time, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Karl.
Thank you.